I want these two to know, I'm going to say this for public record, they know personally, privately, how much I personally think of each of them in their careers and appreciate so much each of them individually. You guys are at the turning point in the U.S. military right now in so many ways. I just have three issues I want to get at real quick, but just two quick questions. One is, I think this whole thing that you're in the middle of, this transition, is what we've already said, visible current capability versus classified replacement capability. Obsolescence, we know we have maturing assets all over the Air Force. I'm very concerned about one specific thing I'll get at in just a second. The second thing, in terms of the JSTARS capability moving to an ABMS, picking up ABMS capability, picking up the JSTARS capability, is this whole development of new technology versus an old acquisition structure. You've got AI in here, and AI, as I understand it, it's machine learning, so the more data you give it, the faster it learns. Well, that doesn't necessarily fit an acquisition structure. So Will Roper, just recently, he's the acquisition chief, as you know, Chief. We've come so far in ABMS that we realize it's bigger than just replacing the capability that JSTARS provides. If you get ABMS right, you just built the military's Internet of Things. That's super exciting, et cetera. But this does not fit the traditional acquisition structure. The third thing is, how do we interact? Given all that, Congress is funding. We have an oversight called the NDAA. We try to give direction. We don't want to become bureaucratic. But right now, I'm very concerned. So in the first few months, you've had one demonstration in December. You got another one coming in April. My concern is that in the first two gates we had, I think it was August 30th or somewhere in there, the AOA was to be completed. And within 6 months after that, Secretary, you're to give us an update, as I understand that. Now, I understand this is somewhat fast-moving. And then the next thing is a briefing in January of some sort here. I realize this is a classified topic, but Secretary, I mean, I need your commitment today that the Air Force will abide by the current NDAA, the public law that exists today that relates to JSTARS and ABMS, specifically Section 236 and Section 147, and that we can expect to receive the AOA, or analysis of alternatives, and the capability development document. Can you commit to that today?
I am not confident that I can commit to it today, but we'll evaluate it, and may I get back with you even later today?
Well, absolutely, but what we're talking about is a new NDAA here. We're preparing for the new NDAA. So if changes need to be made to the structure of oversight, now's the time. You're new in this. It's your first cycle. It's the chief's last cycle, so we've got the best of both worlds here, but let's get this right. Because we can't just, this can't be an acquisition process that we wake up in 3 years and realize it's 3x in cost and 10 years late. I mean, just to be blunt. And it's really unacceptable that we don't get these reports on time when we've asked for that, and we had commitments of predecessors to do that. The second thing, Chief, the events that we're doing now, the demonstrations, the capability that JSTARS has, the two I'm concerned about is GMTI, ground moving target indicators, as you've spoken before about, and then battle management. We get some feedback from other services that, well, we're headed in the wrong direction, or we need to adapt this, and so can you talk about specifically those two capabilities, and then what does that mean in terms of the organic force structure at Robins to help facilitate the headquarters development there of ABMS?
Sure, I'll hit the last part first. There's no intent to reduce the size of the force at Robins, and we're committed to working with you on that. When it comes to...
Sir, could I apologize to interrupt, but you're talking about the force of JSTARS, and there's a gap as JSTARS matures out and you replace it with ABMS. There is a gap of capability. We know it exists today. But in terms of organic force structure, I accept your answer. I appreciate that. Can you address the other part of that?
Yes, sir, but to the gap.
Yes, sir.
Once we determined that we could fly Joint STARS well into the late 20s and into 2030, that actually filled the gap. Okay. So this whole plan is to ensure there is no gap, because there can be no gap for the warfighter.
Very good.
But we have to ensure that we can get them this information on day one of the fight, which is, as you were very helpful to. What we're trying to do here is incredibly disruptive. And it's disruptive in the eyes of the adversary. And so what we did to bring on a new way, this goes to your point about the current acquisition system, we brought in 12 pioneers from industry and put them on an advanced battle management system. We have the designer of Uber on our payroll. And so we're using industry's best practices, and industry is in here with us doing this. The next demonstration we're going to do at Nellis Air Force Base, where all the Joint Chiefs will go to it, we're going to be doing live fly connective capability at Yuma, at Eglin, off the shore, at White Sands, at Nellis Air Force Base. We're going to have 3 supported commanders, and we're going to have a number of firsts. And if we do this right, about 60% of it will work.
So will the next demonstration have GMTI and battle management demonstrated in that demonstration?
It will, but it will do it not from where we want to eventually take it.
Okay.
It will do it in an interim step.
Yes, sir.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.